So yeah, I'm Ian. I'm a Pilates instructor. I work for Equinox in Washington, D.C. I'm also a physical therapist, and that's why I originally moved to D.C. So I've been teaching for about 6 years now.
Mhm.
With the pandemic, it's hard to remember like how many years it's been.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I've been teaching for about 6 years, and same thing with physical therapy. So I did the two at the same time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Now, was that your plan just because like one kind of informs the other, or how did that come about?
Sort of. For me, I worked originally actually at Polestar in Miami while I was applying to physical therapy school. And when I moved to Boston for physical therapy school, they also gave me a bit of a break on the tuition. So I was like, well, now or never. So,
Yes.
so I took that opportunity, ran with it, and just did the two at the same time. I don't necessarily think I would recommend that to everyone because that was a lot to take on.
I can imagine.
um, but when you are given the opportunity, you run with it. So, yeah, I loved seeing from the very beginning the combination of Pilates and physical therapy, and that's definitely guided my practices since.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So then how does that impact, like, do you have a preference of client, like corrective exercise versus performance, or like where do you land in terms of where you lean towards?
I guess for me, it sort of depends. I don't necessarily have like a physical preference to clients. So I have clients right now who are post-stroke, have MS,
Hmm.
and others who are fully functioning athletes. So for me, like I do the whole gamut. I just want someone that is, and I touched on this earlier in my messages to you, like I want someone that's invested in their body and is looking to make
Hmm.
change. I think that it's a really great skill for coaches to have to inspire clients to make change. That's not
Yes.
my particular strength. Like,
Okay.
I'm really good when you've gotten to that point, and then I can help you from there.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. And I used to think for myself that my passion was with working with athletes. And then I realized that it's the elements of the athlete mindset that I'm most attracted to. Someone who, is in tune with their body, is motivated to make their change, can push themselves harder than I can push them. That could be a mother, that could be a grandfather who wants to keep up with his kids. Like there's some elements that I just dismiss as an athlete mindset, but are just intrinsic in certain people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that I'm drawn to. So I
Absolutely.
hear that. Yeah. Ultimate Serenity Bodywork has a comment here. It says, I think Pilates and PT go hand in hand, just like massage and chiropractic.
I would totally agree with that.
Hmm. Yeah, and a few of the Pilates people I've had on here are physical therapists as well, and yeah, they tie the two in. So now, how does that work in terms of your practice? Do you just have people who come in and just can use like benefits and stuff for PT, and then people who are just out of pocket for Pilates, or like how does that piece of it work?
Yeah. So it might be a little bit different, obviously, just depending on the country you're in. So
Yes.
right now, my position with Equinox specifically is as a Pilates instructor. So no insurance is involved. So everything that I do is pretty strictly in the Pilates realm. So not doing any manual therapies, not doing anything along those lines, and just sticking to mostly like what I would deem like therapeutic exercise, if not
Yes.
performative exercise. So that said, everything that I do is through the dual Pilates and physical therapy lens that I look through. So that's kind of more what happens. So it's not necessarily physical therapy that I'm doing, and I definitely wouldn't tout that it is, but it runs both lines.
Yes. And you're so much more marketable with that in your hip pocket.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is call it what it is. You're just better than the
It
next guy who
helps.
doesn't have that,
But
right?
it's also
Like,
like, but it's totally like that's kind of a farce. And I definitely fell into this too. Like when I first started, there are plenty of physical therapists and Pilates instructors who are total trash. Like they think that they're great just because they're a physical therapist,
mhm,
but they're totally not. So when I did my Polestar training, I did it with someone, my educator, her name was Katrina Hawley. She's not a physical therapist and she's outstanding. So
right.
it's just a matter of, and even my very first Pilates instructor was also not a physical therapist. So just because you're a physical therapist does not mean that you're going to be this extraordinary Pilates instructor. And
Right.
if you're one of those people that just rides the title of being a physical therapist, like that's not going to cut it.
Right, exactly. So let's unpack for the audience's viewing pleasure. How would you define a good Pilates instructor?
So for me, a good Pilates instructor is someone that adapts to the person in front of them
Yes.
and will over time share what their goals are for their client as well as what their client's goals are. So it does become collaborative on that front. Not
Yes.
all the time do those two things perfectly link up at the very beginning,
Mhm.
but it's about being able to respect each other's opinions and thoughts on your own body. So one thing that I really don't like is when instructors try and override clients' own goals without any real discussion on it.
Dialogue. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like
Yes.
that's just, to me, it's kind of gross, to be honest. Like,
Mhm.
it's, you have this person and you're just off the bat not respecting them for who they are or why they've come to those goals.
Yes. Or where they
So,
are in that journey with
exactly,
those goals. Yeah.
exactly. So, for me, it's about finding an instructor that's able to honor those things and maybe have different recommendations and work that in along several sessions or several classes, whatever they're
Mhm.
doing, to be able to have that dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear some people's comments on that and what are some of those key elements for a good Pilates instructor, just in the chat, just to keep that going. Yeah, because I agree with all of that. And one of the things that we keep talking about too is there's a sense of fearlessness when it comes to like not being afraid to make a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
not being afraid to just ask, not being afraid to say, well, let me just look that up and I'll get back to you next week on the best way to do that. Instead of, purporting that we're such a professional that we have all the answers ready and like, and not to say that Jay Grimes is absolutely perfect, but I mean, when you've been doing it for like 40, 50, 60 years, you're going to have a lot more tools in your toolbox than me with 10 years under my belt, right?
Right.
So obviously the time that takes for someone who has that much more experience to pull something off the shelf that you need right now, I may have to go back to the warehouse and pick that up, whereas they might have it in their pocket right now, so to speak, in terms of where their access to that information is.
Totally. And yeah, I think it's like about being a lifelong learner. Like, you're never going to know everything. You're never going to be perfect. Every body is individual. Like,
Yep.
no one approach to things is going to fix it. So
Mhm.
Joseph Pilates was this incredible innovator. We all need to be that innovator in principle to be able to work with each person that's in front of us.
Yes, absolutely. There's a comment. That was a great comment, by the way. So a good teacher is someone who listens to your concerns and fears, and gives you a light at the end of the tunnel to work towards. We are brokers of hope. Yeah.
That's a great
I
way to
like.
put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Like, I mean, like, whether it's something that is so far down the line that like they're not even sure if they're ever going to get there, and then we're just celebrating progress day to day, or if it's something that's just like a few weeks away, and we have to get them to that place. Either way, we're just kind of giving them some light in their path, right? So, yeah.
Do you feel like you attract any type of one client versus another in with regards to your practice?
Um, well, yeah, I'm really passionate about getting men into Pilates, and on one level, and the other one is just getting the general population moving
Mm-hmm.
with Pilates. So as much as I like, the big fancy advanced moves and like challenging my body in that way, I'm more than content to work with introducing people to the work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if I had to boil that down, then introducing men to the work. So I find that I'm getting people who are referring their husbands to me, or people who are thinking, like my neighbors or these guys would love this, or this basketball team, these men would. So I find that just because that's what I represent,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like I'm saying this every time, and I'm not hating on dancers by any means, but I am not a dancer. So I'm a Pilates guy who does not come from the dance world to this space, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I represent, the average athlete, the average guy, the like who's someone who's not going to be super bendy right out of the gate. So that sort of thing. So I find that I'm attracting people that would otherwise think that it's just for, like Alexa said, just for skinny white, moms doing Pilates. That it is for everybody, and some of that everybody is people that look like me.
Yeah, totally. And like, welcoming more than just like you and Alexa both said, like the same old white skinny women from affluence, like doing it. Like there needs to be more representation and more people feeling welcome to do this.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, so how do we do that? It's one is just being visible, and two is just talking about it more. And it's I'm there's this intersection of representation for representation's sake, and also like what we just talked about a few minutes ago is being actually good at your job. And if you're good at it and you're getting referrals and people are seeing results and people are, walking to their family and just having better posture or having better mobility and those things, they're like, oh, I went to Ian, that'll do it, right? Like that'll
Mm-hmm.
grow it. Yeah, so
Totally. And I definitely think like word of mouth is so powerful. It's being able to just like show people and let them feel it for themselves will get all the word out there over time. It just will obviously take
yes,
a lot of time, but it's a great way just to expose everyone to what's going on in the Pilates industry.
absolutely. I'm just reading the second comment here. I look at when I first started, I could not perform leg circles with straight legs. My teacher just said, just put in the work and your body will adapt. Message advice from my teacher. Yes, exactly. And that's it, just like being consistent with the work. And yes, word of mouth is better than Google. Yes, facts. Yeah, exactly. So and that's that piece about just putting in the work and getting better and learning is all good. One of the things that we were talking about earlier was about like in our conversations earlier, about like listening to your body and learning from your body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you teach your clients to listen to their body? Like how do you actually get people to a place of understanding when their body is speaking to them so they can listen?
Mm-hmm. For me, I work, so being in Washington, D.C., it is a lot of people who are looking for high performance, but they're so taxed with what they do all day long in terms of work,
Yes.
lawyers, doctors, lobbyists. So the amount of time that they spend building a relationship with their body is not a ton.
I love how you say that, building relationship with their body.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it does take a lot of work also trying to get them to put value in spending that time building the relationship with their body. It doesn't
Yes.
it doesn't come easily. And I go through a lot of phases with different clients just to figure out what will work the best. Obviously
Yes.
try to stay positive, but like I've been known to like maybe snap at a client or two when they're just like not getting it.
Right.
So there's a lot of tools. I obviously, like I said, I try and stay in the positive realm, but like I'm from
But it happens.
I'm from like a loud family in New England, so like a curse or two has been known to leave my mouth. Um, but like once you're able to do that, then you can really dive into the real work. And I do tell a lot of my clients like, hey, you're doing great, you're progressing, but you're going to hit a physical plateau. And then from there, it's mental. Like you need to fix your
Yes.
mental attitude in order to see further progress. And if you're not going to do that, then like I'm happy to keep taking your money. That's not a problem. But you're going to be doing the same thing over and over while I take your money.
Right. It's good. Candid conversation.
Yeah. But like I said, like it's not for everyone. Like I think I have 30 clients right now, doing about like anywhere from 30 to 45 sessions a week. So I have my bunch that like are coming in and doing that mental work and those that aren't. And that's not for them and that's totally fine. As long as they realize what their potential could be, if it's their decision, like I was talking about earlier, what their goals are, like
Yes.
you can do that with your own body. I'm not going to force you into it. I can only make you aware of it.
Right. Exactly. So let me know when you're ready to show up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The relationship with your body piece has really resonated because we talk about the relationship with food, right? And
Yeah.
we get on the, it's, but I never heard someone talk about it in the context of relationship with your own body. Like, I mean, but
Mhm.
it's exactly the same thing. It could be a toxic
It is the same
relationship.
thing.
It could be just an abusive relationship. It could be a self-serving relationship. There's so many different ways that that relationship can be healthy or unhealthy. So it's I
Mhm.
like that dialogue and just bringing that to your, because I'm sure our clients don't even realize that they have never even thought about like their relationship with their body. They just do to it or just listen,
Yeah.
So
And a lot of times, like the conversations that I have with clients, I tell them, like, I want you to think about the movement. I don't want you to do the movement.
mm,
Like, I want you to think what goes into it, or like act it out beforehand in your own mind, and listen to everything that has come out of my mouth because it wasn't for my benefit. What can you apply to each movement to make it better? But that
yes,
has to come on your end. Like, I can't sit here and do that all day long.
yes, so funny. I was just like Kevin. Do you know Kevin? I can't remember his last name right now. He was in the chat earlier,
Oh,
but
he
like
was.
the
I'm
yeah.
not familiar. I'm really terrible with names, so by
Okay.
no means I wouldn't.
I'll connect you afterwards because you guys sound like you have that same snarky, like this is the way it is. I can't believe he just said that to me, but he was right kind of attitude.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it comes up with, like, again, I grew up in New England. Like, my parents weren't the best, so like I'm very cut. I'm very cut and dry. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like sit here and like make everyone feel better. And like I said, like
Right.
I'm not the person you come to when you need emotional work. Like, I'm the person that you come when you need physical work.
Right.
But I don't let people get away from things. Like, I'm gonna force them into having conversations.
Reading this comment here. I'm a 57-year-old who went to one Pilates class a couple years ago for the first time. What do you recommend for finding a teacher and starting a regular practice? Is it something that can be done daily? Great question.
So I can take that.
Hmm.
It sounds like what you want to do is, and obviously it depends on where you're living, but just do kind of an overview of the different studios and the different instructors that might be in your area. While Pilates is something that you can do every day, we all have different bodies, and you would want to address that question with a Pilates instructor that you talk with. So they're the experts that you're going to. They're going to be the one that can recommend what your program should look like, whether that's individual session, like private sessions, or classes in a group setting. It's definitely something that you're going to want to rely on that way. The fact that you've only been to one class doesn't preclude you from any variety of level. You could be performing at an intermediate level within the next few weeks, just depending on your background and how well you pick things up. But that's something that you would also want to talk to an instructor about. So
Yes.
it really is just about finding a studio or an instructor near you and working with the resources around you, but then also listening to the experts that you're going to make the recommendations, because they're the ones that will have seen your body.
Yes. Absolutely. I love this saying like shop your instructors. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many people that are out there doing the work, and you will resonate with somebody. You'll connect with someone. They'll understand your body in a certain way, and that will help be the motivator for your body. Much like Serenity Wellness. Well, sorry, Ultimate Serenity Bodywork. You're saying like I went to a group reformer class myself, and they hurt my back 10 years ago, and I realized it was a bad teacher that turned me off the Pilates and not the method. We can find someone and it just turns us off. I was in a Starbucks a while back and someone said I stopped doing Pilates because I hurt my back during Pilates. I was like, well, Pilates is supposed to help your back, so clearly something was off there. But so shop your instructors. Like yes, like everything you said, there's 100%, and just know that much like personal training, I always say personal training is personal. So you're gonna find someone who may not be the most decorated in terms of their experience in years, but they just get your body and they're passionate about the movement and curious and want to help you. And that's gonna do better for you than finding someone who is like classically trained by Joseph Plies himself and is a physical therapist and is a doctor. And I mean, like, it doesn't, letters don't matter. Find someone who understands the work, understands your body, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like have gone through my fair share of shopping instructors too, and being a manager and looking also from a recruiting aspect, like there's a lot of instructors that you won't vibe with. So when it speaking towards your own body, you do want to find someone that your body felt good after working with them. You want to, that's really what it comes down to. It's your body. You want
Absolutely.
it to feel good.
Hmm. Well said. Absolutely. Originally, how did you find Pilates? Like, what made you decide that this is something you're going to dive into, besides just like, okay, here's a chance to take it for a discount?
Uh, so it kind of really was just a happy accident. When I was applying to physical therapy school, you need to do like X number of observation hours. And Polestar really was like across the street from where I was attending university at University of Miami. So I started there, and then that's kind of how I got into it. So I've never really, well, when I was starting, I had never really understood that Pilates was its own thing. I always saw it in tandem to physical therapy. And then from there, seeing how it helped everyone at Polestar, the clients there, and seeing how wonderful the instructors were, like that's just what kept me going. And I was like, my very first instructor, her name is Gretchen Wagner in Miami, and she truly is so magnificent. And every day I try and show up for work to be like, I want to be like Gretchen. Like that's my,
Yeah.
like, and I want to make Gretchen proud that like she was my first Pilates instructor.
Right.
So, like that's what kind of keeps me going. I was just looking at the comment here about how did the method change your body. Before Pilates, I guess I enjoyed fitness, but never really found something that I wanted to stick to just because everything was kind of boring to me. Like lifting weights was so repetitive. But Pilates felt both welcoming and freeing in terms of my body. Like I was able to do it, I could pick it up well, but then obviously saw so much challenge behind the advanced
Yes.
moves. So for me, it was just something I could really like sink my teeth into. I'm also, this isn't healthy, but I'm a perfectionist, and there's like so much that you can perfect about one's Pilates practice
Yes.
to like a not okay way, which I for sure have been known to do. But like you can really dive into it and make sure that even if you're not perfecting it, you're exploring it in different ways and how those
Yes.
different ways can change my body, but then also how they can change my clients depending on how their body presents.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess you don't play golf or anything. Now it's going to be like the ultimate pursuit of perfection and never getting there.
No, I'm like a huge golf hater. No, I'm a big tennis person though. Big tennis
Okay.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
All about strategy, all about how like fast moving, like professional baseball is another one that I can't do. Like I can't watch just because it's like, guys, we're taking 10 minutes between pitches. Like let's speed this, let's get the show on the road.
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly. Let's just change gears before we start hating on all the baseball people. I have my whole soapbox for that too. So let's talk
Yeah.
about Sonia
Yeah.
and the work that she's doing and how you've been connecting with her.
Yeah. So I started working with Sonia at the beginning of the year. Knowing that she's been very vocal, she is an expert in her anti-racism work in
Sonia
Pilates.
Herbert Price, by the way,
Yeah.
just dropping first names like everyone knows who we're talking about.
Um, and her expertise in anti-racism is truly, it's out there, it's in your face, and it makes you feel uncomfortable as a white person, anyways. Like, so I took that and was like, okay, I'm clearly uncomfortable for a reason, so this is something that I need to be doing. Let me, while I didn't know Sonia personally, her attitude can come off as aggressive, but like mine certainly can too. So I was like, you know what? Let me just do it. Like, if I'm uncomfortable, that's what is needed. She is the expert in this. Like, this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
So, started her program. It ended up being a 13-week anti-racism training, meeting once weekly in the evenings, and it combined a lot of different things. So Sonia taught some Pilates classes in it as well. We read a book by Rachel Ricketts called Do Better, to further unpack like racism in general and how it affects those around us. And particularly to Pilates, because representation is so limited, it really takes a lot to be able to see that as a white person because it's just not something that we're forced to think about every day. So,
Right. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So that sense of being uncomfortable with it, I
Mhm.
love that you mentioned that, because there's times that I'm sure we've had a boss or someone where they say something uncomfortable and you're challenged to be better,
Mhm.
and then another person says something uncomfortable and you're inspired to just walk away from them completely.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that you it's received in different ways. So
Mhm.
how was it about this? What was it about this that made you say, okay, I'm uncomfortable and I want to lean into this?
That's a really good question, and I don't know if I have an answer for that. I think it was mostly just like, particularly in my lifetime, I'm under 30, so the civil rights movements of the 60s is not something that I grew up around. But with the events of last year, really having it brought to the forefront and having to look at it, I was like, hey, listen, like, if being uncomfortable is what it takes for those around me to be comfortable, then I'm happy just to be that, like, to help and be a better
Nice.
person and like make others more comfortable at my expense. Like that's not a problem for me. So that was kind of more like me just wanting to be a better person to, like I said, make others more comfortable because it's not just about the Ian show all the time.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's good. So what was your biggest takeaway from it?
Um, I don't know if there was like a biggest takeaway just because I'm sure, as you know, like it's not just about like Sonia's program. It's not just about like the acts of like, oh, I went to one anti-racist class, so like look at
Check.
me. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't think there was necessarily like one practice, like one thing in particular, other than the fact that it is a continuous process, and especially with the way that I was brought up, with New England being a particularly toxic type of racist, and also so anti-indigenous, like there's just so much work to do, and like learning to think outside of your box, like your own individual box, and
Yes.
see life through the perspective of others. um, and then ideally, granted, I just moved, like finances are a little all over the place, but the next goal is if Misty Lynn runs another of her program Beyond the Bullshit, like that's going to be the next place that I go.
Yes.
Also because I could listen to Misty Lynn talk all day long. Like, please put her on NPR. Like, she's just so wonderful.
Yes. Agreed. Indeed, as you would say.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like I just, well, it's almost like I heard your takeaway in just what you're saying. Like if it means me being uncomfortable makes other people feel comfortable, it's
Mhm.
worth it.
Yeah.
Like that just really did touch me. I appreciate that. Um, and there's ways where I'm doing that with the indigenous community here in Canada, where I'm like, okay, well, let's take a course, let's listen to them, let's learn
Mhm.
more about it. Like I've been challenged to even I thought about like, do I open every show with a land recognition, like and land acknowledgement? Like is that a
Mhm.
step that I need to do? Like those kind of things. Like how do we weave that into our everyday life beyond what you see? How do we actually do things that are not performative, but are
Correct.
respective of the fact that we're learning?
Right. Yeah, because I think like a lot of it can come off too, like when you are doing these things, particularly as a white person, like a lot of it can come off as virtue signaling and being like, oh, I'm so great, like checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. But being able to really make personal changes, but then make changes around like everything around you, like who's in your network, are you checking your network?
Hmm.
Are like it's not just about letting yourself, like over time at least, it's not just about letting yourself be the anti-racist. Like you need to make sure that everyone in your circle is doing the work too, and
Yes,
realizing that it's not just about them either. And that's a hard battle to be fought, but it's what we all need to be doing to, like I said, make everyone more comfortable.
absolutely, absolutely. And we have, and not to jump on the privilege piece of it too, but when we start to think about, um, like Jenna Safino said on my show here, support, amplify, and connect. There are places where we have some leverage. There are some places where we already have a voice. And how do we bring those other voices into the room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's like a really big conversation too. And even when you're working with clients, granted, it's a little bit of a weird relationship because they're paying sometimes, but I for sure have had to have conversations with clients where they've like said things that are absolutely not okay. And being able to do it in a way that both educates them without chastising them, lets them know that it's, how do I want to finish the sentence? It lets them know that like it's still a safe space for them to talk, that they shouldn't be scared of thinking one way or another. But then on my end, also giving them voices of others that they need to go to like really become, like really listen on other people's topics. Like I can't talk for any Black person. I can't talk about any Indigenous experience. Like I can only give, like I said, like amplify their voices and say, go to this person to learn more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are, or read this book, or here's a quick video, here's a YouTube video on, like, just like anything that kind of sparks that. I mean, because you're coming from a place of some pretty serious resilience. Like we were saying, like that uncomfortable and leaning into that discomfort is not something that people are naturally inclined to do unless you're wired a certain way. So now we have to navigate for our clients or other people who may not have that same level of resilience to being uncomfortable so that they can still start their journey or continue their journey in a different way. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it takes work. It's something that I think everyone, let me correct, white people need their hand held a little bit. Like, it's not going to feel natural. Being uncomfortable is not something anyone wants to do, but it's something, like I said, we all just have to do it. Like, no one of us can talk for another person's experiences. So you have to go through life being willing and understanding of what other people's experiences might be to learn who they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been leaning towards the word other, just as a blanket statement to catch all, because like us as men, we could say, well, what about for women who don't have a voice, who are getting underpaid, or what about for, like, there's so many different, like, the other is so far is everyone out there. So I mean, like, from my place of advantage, even as a Black male, my place of advantage is I have a place of advantage in some context. That's what I'm trying to say. So in some context, I have a place of advantage. So this is where I need to, leverage that for others, or to interrupt, as who was it? Chrissy King said, interrupting racism, in that sense of like, when those things happen, how do I interrupt that? How do I allow for other voices to be heard and seen and represented? So, yeah,
totally.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I like to just let things just stay out there for a minute sometimes.
That's fine. I was like trying to like silently think about it too.
Yes, it's true. I mean, sometimes we feel like we need to fill that space, right? We need to fill that emptiness with just like words for word's sake. But like, no, that's good stuff. Like, I like the fact that you lean into that discomfort. Like that especially is the one thing that's really hit home with me, is that we need to do that. I need to do that more. It's not just a white person's job to lean into that discomfort. Like, I need to look for those places where I am comfortable while the rest of the world is uncomfortable, and where do I lean in?
Right. And yeah, like you said, like, we all have that work. We all have our certain privileges, like some more than others. So it's just about being able to see like where your privileges lie, how that has contributed to the life that you lead, and what you might take for granted that others don't.
Yep. Yes. Eyes wide open.
Yeah.
That is so good. Man, we are at the end of our time, but I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I want to keep this conversation going. We'll continue to chat like online. Just, do you have any other like speaking gigs coming up? Any workshops, teaching stuff?
I do not. I am generally, especially these days post-pandemic, I'm like kind of in the shadows. Like, I've just been doing instead of speaking. So I've not got a ton going on. I'm hoping, the idea is that if the Canada borders open up, that I'll be able to touch base with Natalia and actually like come up and do something in Toronto. Yes. So that would be pretty awesome. But since that looks a little distant,
Yes.
I'm not putting too many pins in that, but still remaining hopeful.
Yes, I feel you on that. I know. Then meanwhile, I'm like watching Momentum Fest. Like, what are you guys doing now?
Yeah, I saw you talking the other day. I'm like, what's going on? Dude, tell me everything that's going on.
Yes, the certified FOMO as prescribed. Man, craziest. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, Matt. I really appreciate you and keep doing your great work. I'm cheering you on and everything that you put your hands to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great talk.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. And thank you to all of our people who have been cheering you on here and for all your comments. And we're good to go.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
All
Bye
right. Thank you. Take care. See ya.
bye.